About a year ago, I began a video series about what I hope to see in future seasons of MLP, and even after going through all of Season 4, I still think that many of those ideas could work well in the actual show. Or at least, I would thoroughly enjoy seeing these characters learn such life lessons and add some greater depth to their story arcs. But I had put that series on hold throughout Season 4 because I wanted to get an in-depth understanding of all the added themes to MLP before trying to create more story ideas of my own again. And now that Season 4 has had its finale, and I've been given the chance to let all these ideas stew for a while, I would very much like to continue the series I began last year. So, which of these characters would I like to see the most growth from in future stories? What sort of interactions could make for an even more in-depth show that both children and adults could understand? While I did put a lot of focus on each of the main 6 and even Spike in all my previous story ideas, for this video I would like to focus more on one of the villains, more specifically a reformed villain. We saw a lot more of Discord in Season 4 than any of the previous seasons combined, and yeah, he's a very enjoyable character. His interactions with the main 6 have made for some very memorable scenes, and his story arc during Season 4 showed that he is not infallible, that he can have flaws and is learning to overcome them. But how can we build upon his story arc in future seasons? In what ways would I like to see him grow? And more importantly, what sort of conflicts would help him to get there? Well, I think that the key to Discord's future should involve his past, way back in the days when he had been tormenting the ponies of Equestria. Now, of course, we do know that he was stopped by the elements of harmony, but what about before then? Surely there must have been others who at least attempted to stop Discord's reign of chaos. Well, this is where we can involve another character who has been mentioned many times throughout MLP but never given the chance to be at the center of a story. Starswirl the Bearded. We've heard about his exploits and even how much Twilight idolizes him, but we know nothing about how his story came to an end. Well, I would like to propose that his story didn't come to an end, but rather Starswirl had been the victim of one of Discord's more devastating tricks. I'm sure that Starswirl would have made a valiant effort to be as much of a thorn in Discord's side as possible, and Discord, still being the tormenting villain he was back then, could have done something truly awful in return. I want each of you to think about the Season 2 opener, when Discord had taken Twilight back to an earlier scene in order to remind her of the riddle. The two of them are witnessing events that had already happened, while not being able to interact with those they see. Now, this could simply be that Discord is showing Twilight a memory and nothing more. But there is also the possibility that Discord had taken Twilight outside of time itself to witness events as they unfolded, and then brought her back to reality, and we all know the rest of the story. Now, imagine for a moment that far back in the past, Discord had done this same thing with Starswirl the Bearded, showing him events as they unfolded, while he was unable to interact with anything. I'm sure that both Starswirl and Discord could have a few choice words with each other, and in a moment of great evil, Discord would come up with an idea that would torment Starswirl for all time. Discord would snap himself back to reality and leave his victim in this state. Starswirl would be trapped, unable to use his magic, unable to interact with anyone or anything. A silent witness to the fate of Equestria and all the ponies he loved. I'm sure that leaving Starswirl in that state would fill the Discord of old with gleeful triumph, as only he would know what had become of Equestria's unicorn champion. But then we all know what would happen next. The Royal Sisters remove the elements from the Tree of Harmony and confront the Spirit of Chaos. Except, with this added story element, Celestia and Luna would have more of a reason for their righteous fury. I've often wondered whether Princess Celestia's anger against Discord was something of a more personal nature, and if Discord had taken Starswirl beyond the reach of the Royal Sisters, never telling them what had happened to their dear friend. That would add a whole new level of depth to this ancient story. And poor Starswirl, having to wander Equestria for centuries, unable to interact, unable to be with the ponies he cared for, but more importantly, unable to age. he would remain just as he was in the moment when Discord had removed him from reality. He would be stricken with grief for his endless solitude. But there would also be a growing anger against the spirit of chaos for having put him in this prison, this eternal torment, all because it would amuse the villainous Discord, or at least the Discord of old. So, how would Starswirl escape this harsh banishment? Well, the season finale provided us with just such a miracle. The rainbow power released by the main six covered the whole of Equestria, restoring all the ponies to their former selves. And for the first time in over 1,000 years, Starswirl would be able to interact with the world around him. The royal sisters would finally learn what had happened to their friend of old. The main six, and particularly Twilight, would meet this famous unicorn from the time of Equestria's founding. But most importantly of all, Discord would be confronted with his crimes of the ancient past. Just imagine all the story possibilities that could come from this. Discord had been reformed, had gained the trust of the main six and the royal sisters, had begun learning the power of friendship. But what would he do now if his past sins had started catching up with him? And what about Starswirl the Bearded? He had done much in helping ancient Equestria and the royal sisters, and spent over 1,000 years only being able to watch as nearly everyone he knew and loved passed on. And something else that could add to this story's conflict. What if Starswirl knew nothing of Discord's reformation, and was suddenly confronted with this ancient enemy being once again loose upon the world? Wouldn't be so easy for the main six or even the royal sisters to convince him of Discord's intentions. I can imagine several different story ideas that could come out of these events alone, and I shall go into further detail in the next video I make on this subject. In the meantime though, I would like to hear your thoughts. Given what we know of Discord, would this kind of story arc be a welcomed addition to any of his future episodes? Would you want to see Starswirl the Bearded making a full appearance in the show with a few stories dedicated to his character? Do you think having this kind of conflict would work in MLP? I would like to hear your thoughts on these story elements, and I hope that you will join me next time when I expand upon these ideas. I am DRWolf, and I look forward to hearing from you.